Monica and
emmmabooks.
Yay! We are going to be talking about solo travel, which is a thing that both of us have done. Emma most recently.
Yes, and I just got back 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
For my first time ever.
Which is so exciting. We both love travel and thought, I know that people always have lots of questions, I feel like, when they see you traveling alone, so I thought this could be helpful. We posted over on Twitter and Instagram to get questions from you guys, so I'm really excited to just talk about solo traveling adventures and our experiences.
Exactly.
Should we start? Should we start off just talking about like the places we've been?
Yeah, so as Monica said, I only just recently traveled solo for the first time. I went to England and Paris. I did it was like a 16-day trip, so I sort of say it's like 5 days in London, 5 days in Paris, and 5 days in London again.
So I have also done a bit of solo travel in the past. I lived in Paris alone for like 4 months. While I was there, traveled throughout Europe a bit, and then did a solo trip through Barcelona and a bit of Italy. So have a bit of experience in a variety of different places and lots of thoughts about the whole thing.
Absolutely.
So one of the questions we got was from Sarah, and she asked if we had any packing tips.
I mean, I overpacked going there and going home, so I don't know how many tips I really have. I did discover travel cubes, packing cubes for the first time right before I went away, and those changed the game for me. I was able to have a cube for my pants and a cube for my shirts and a cube for my undergarments, and it just made everything so much easier. I really was ready to write them off when I saw people suggesting them, but totally changed the game for me.
What I've come to learn is that pretty much everything you can buy in another country, so don't feel too stressed about having to bring every single toiletry. I feel like that's half the fun, is kind of getting to try I thought that was really cool. I always keep in mind the fact that I love to shop.
Yes.
So I either try and keep half my suitcase just totally empty, or I have I only bring one of my carry-ons, and I keep a spare bag that I can bring on the flight home, so I always have space for all of the shopping that I will inevitably do.
My checked bag was 11 pounds overweight coming home.
No!
It was all fine because I finagled it with my carry-on. I just was oh yeah, it's a great idea for me to put all my books in my suitcase, which is a weight limit, and had to redo it all at the airport. So yeah, I also agree with leaving space because you are definitely going to want to buy things when you're traveling.
Yes. So Amanda asked, how did you save money to travel? I have no self-control and don't know how to save money to save my life. Girl, same.
I do feel the same, but I have recently developed a really great strategy for saving money for trips that works really well for me. So what I do is every week without fail, I take out $20 cash out of my account, because with where I am financially, I won't miss $20 because I'll use it on something else. So I take it out in cash, I keep it in a jar at home, and if I use that money, I replenish it immediately. If I need cash for something, still coming right back out of my account. Also sometimes if I'm buying something and I can get cash back, I'll take that $10 and throw it in. I also give myself rewards, when whenever I'm on time for work, which is never, I give myself an extra $5 towards the reward of saving. So it helps instill good behaviors too, but as someone who also has that problem with credit cards where it's just spend all the monies, having it in cash and having it separate from all my other expenses is really what has helped me save up money. I think I saved up more than enough in 8 months for my trip, and that's totally from taking it out in cash and keeping it at home.
I historically have been horrible at it. So for Paris, I found out I was moving there a week before, so I really didn't have an opportunity for that.
Wild.
It was a wild time in my life. Previously, whenever I've done solo trips, I've just sort of tried to save in whatever way I could. For my most recent trip, which wasn't solo, I went to Japan, and I actually was so proud of myself because I did save money. And you should look at, so what I actually did was my bank, I use Bank of America, and they have a special savings account structure or tool that basically allows you to create mini savings accounts without actually opening multiple savings accounts. So within your savings, and then you can designate where each of those things are going to go. So for me, in my savings account, I have one that's just emergency savings, I have my travel savings, I have, you know, new camera or whatever equipment. And I like, every time I put stuff into my savings, I transfer them, I put them under those different categories. And that's really helpful for me just to like visualize where all of that money is going. On that line though, I would also, like, if you are on a budget, make sure you stick to that budget. Like, actually, like, when you're in the planning stages, my recommendation, make a spreadsheet so you know how much you're going to be spending on where you're staying. Like, think about food prices and stuff like that, and just like budget it out day by day, just so you have an idea of like what you're gonna need. And also, like, look at different like budget friendly places when it comes to staying. Like, I've stayed at a variety of hostels and I've loved pretty much every experience I've had. Obviously, do your research, stay safe, all of that. And Airbnbs have also been great. I've done a lot of like basically homes where it'd be like every room is an Airbnb room and you're staying with a bunch of people. Again, be safe, be smart, but definitely, like, there are options if you're like on a budget to stay within your budget.
So we got a couple of questions on overcoming the fear of solo traveling from Abby, or how to deal with travel anxiety from Becky. So I feel like that's definitely something we could both speak to.
Yeah, I don't get as much travel anxiety as much as I used to, in terms of like, because I feel like I've just traveled a lot and I've taken a lot of flights and I've had a lot of things go wrong. I would just say, like, think about what makes you anxious. So for example, I know that like I'm always anxious about like missing my flight or missing like a connecting flight. So I think about that in the booking process and in the traveling process. Like, I make sure I get to an airport like pretty early. Like, a lot of my friends make fun of me because I get there kind of early. I feel like you get there even earlier than I get there. But yeah, like, you know, I make sure I get there early, and then I also, when I'm booking, I make sure that the connecting flight, that there is a good like window in there, because I feel like that is so stressful. Like, if your flight's delayed, then it's gonna bump everything else, and that's something that like is probably the most stressful. Like, I definitely run through an airport in hopes of like maybe like not missing my flight, and it's so stressful when that happens.
Yeah, so I totally like almost missed my flight home.
No.
I was like one of the last people on the flight, and it was because I was doing an Instagram Q&A. I really resonate with that, like, know what gives you anxiety, because I think that's so important so you can be prepared for it. Like, with me, my anxiety comes from also like missing flights, but I just have this like irrational fear that like I'm gonna get pulled over by border control even though I'm doing nothing wrong, or like I'm just always so afraid of the actual traveling part of it. So I just also try and be really prepared for that, and make sure everything's in order. And another way that I found myself encountering a little bit of anxiety while traveling wasn't like generally every day, but it would be like when I would like get a little lost, or like my GPS wasn't working. I feel like the best way to push through that is just to like keep trying, take a minute, walk somewhere else if you're not getting great service, ask
Starbucks.
a local. Yes, Starbucks is always reliable.
You will always get internet.
Also, get comfortable asking locals. That was something that like I wish I did more, because I feel like a lot of times I would try and figure it out myself, but asking someone, like, a lot of people are really helpful when you're a tourist. Yeah,
I would definitely like pre-learn some phrases if you're going to a place that speaks a different language from you.
When I was in Paris, I had like a little cheat sheet, even though I've had like many years experience with French. Like, I had a cheat sheet of like how to order and directions. And along that line, something that I wish I did more was ask people how to say things in that language, so that I could ask another time.
Another thing I would say is like make sure that like look into different logistics beforehand. So like one thing that I didn't do before I got to Japan, my flight connected in Shanghai, and it wasn't until like a couple of days before my flight that I realized that someone mentioned like, oh, don't you need a visa to like go to China? I feel like there's the privilege of like having an American passport and being like, oh yeah, I could go anywhere, and like that is not the case.
Yeah, that's true.
Luckily, there is, with China, you can be there for a layover. So I was fine, but I like had such a panic for like a couple of days, because also it was like the information online was like not the greatest. I feel like for that in particular, everyone was sort of saying different things, so it took me you know, a little while to like feel, and it wasn't honestly until I like got through all the security in China
you were okay with
that I felt okay. That was another thing, is like, you know, just think about all those like little things, those logistics beforehand, especially if you're kind of used to having a passport that kind of gets you in everywhere. Like just double check.
Yeah, like just don't assume everything's
Yeah.
gonna be the way it is in your own country.
Yeah.
I think that's a big one. On a related note, Daisy asked, what tips would you give to staying safe while traveling solo? I definitely went into it just like being prepared. Like I knew where all the embassies were. I knew, you know, what important phone numbers I would need. And I also had like my families and friends track me on iPhone, which like
Smart.
just gave me like a feeling like someone knows where I am right now.
Yeah.
So that just like calmed a little bit and made me feel safer.
Yeah.
If you're alone, I wouldn't recommend being out super late and not great areas. Like I
Yeah.
feel like that's a given, but you know, I think sometimes it is better to like take an early night in if you don't like being out late at night. It's okay to do that.
You were a much safer traveler. as you were like talking about like, oh, knowing you're like where the embassies are, it's like having all these numbers. I was like, I've never done that. Yeah, so I stay out pretty late. So if I was going home really late, I would typically
It's safer to just
Uber
arrive there.
or something. Yeah, so that I just felt a little bit more secure. And also just like be aware of your surroundings.
Yes.
I feel like that's something that I'm really bad at doing in New York.
But
But I'm
better
usually
way.
pretty good when I'm abroad. Like I'm very aware of like who's around me. Also, I'm aware of like my bag and stuff. Like I remember I would walk around Barcelona and I would just see people, or like any country, and I would just see like with these open bags and they just like leave them open.
I do that all the time. If you're a solo traveler and like it makes you feel more comfortable, have a story about you not being a solo traveler. Like,
Yes.
I would tell people that like I was traveling with my sister and she was like on a date with her boyfriend. Like
Never
that day.
tell people you're
No,
traveling alone.
avoid it. Even if like you think that they're cool, like
Yeah.
also solo travelers, like it's fine to make up a story and have it in your head because it's harder to lie on the spot.
Yeah.
And just protect yourself and don't give out more information than you feel comfortable giving out to people. You're okay. You're allowed to set up those boundaries with strangers.
I would also recommend, there's this Facebook group called Girls Love Travel.
Yes, I joined that one.
Yes. I feel like it's so many people are a part of this group, and it's such an amazing place to like get information, to hear from other women who have traveled to countries often alone, their experiences. They put so many tips and ideas and like places to stay and all that kind of stuff. It's a closed group, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a closed group, so you just apply to join, but it's like apply and everyone gets in. If you have other things that you're particularly like, interested in learning more about, they have like subgroups. So like for example, I'm part of like there's like a plus size one.
Cool.
And they like talk about just like that particular experience, and that's been really helpful for me, especially going into like Japan and places like that. To also stamp out the idea that like as a woman you should be afraid of places, because like you shouldn't be. Like you are strong, you are powerful,
You are independent.
you're independent, you can travel the world just like anyone else.
Yeah, we're not limited.
Yeah, we're not limited. We shouldn't be limited. Consulting Storyteller asked, how in depth do you go when planning your solo trips? For example, do you have an itinerary you stick to, or is it mostly flexible? If there is an itinerary, how do you go about setting up appointments for the sites you'll be visiting?
I will say, my planning started with me going over to Monica's house to have her explain to me how to plan, because I had never planned an itinerary before. So I feel like you should start with everything you told me, and then I can add on how I adapted it.
So I think what I'll do is I'll put a link in the description box below to a blank version of the itinerary that I made for Japan, because I feel like just looking at that will probably be easier than me like talking through it.
It's so good.
But for me, what I start with is I go into Google Maps and I start just tagging like every location. Well, I guess what I start with is I go on Instagram. I start looking at geolocations. I start looking at like travel bloggers, and I basically create, so like Instagram has like their saved things. So I make a lot of saved folders. Every place I'm planning on going to has a saved folder that I put just like tons of photos into that inspire me, places I want to go. I plug all of that then into Google. I save all of those locations, and then I go through and I map out my days. So I try and like think about like public transport, getting to and from places, trying to group together activities each day, just so I'm not going back and forth. And that's especially important. Yeah, especially if you're going to like a big city, like Tokyo was huge. Like you can, if you don't plan it properly, like your time on the train will be very annoying. It'll take up a lot of your day. So definitely like just think about like where things are. Google Maps is super helpful for that, and just being able to visualize it.
I will definitely second the Google Maps thing. That's something that was really helpful to me. You can also download the map offline.
Yes.
So it usually, you can use it without service, which is helpful.
It's very helpful.
And I just saved like every recommendation, everything that interested me, I just added to my want to go folder, so it would pop up. And then if I was ever in an area and I'm like, I need somewhere to eat, like I might find something that's right over there. So I definitely checked out places that I maybe wouldn't have gone to if I was just like thinking of it, because it was close to me on my map.
Yeah, I agree. And again, having like just like putting everything that you might want to do on the map, it like opens you up, because then if you do have that free time, you at least have all those options there. So you don't have to plan your lunch in advance. You just like have it saved on your phone, so that when you're in that area, you can pick when you're there. I would also say something that I always try and do is I always try and plan at least one just totally empty day, because every time I travel, there's always a day, sometime where I'm just like, I'm anxious, I'm stressed, I've been here for too long, take me home, and I just kind of want to chill.
Yeah.
And so I use that day, it's usually sometime closer to the end of my trip, and I use it to just go somewhere that I've already gone to, and I just want to experience it again because I loved it so much. So for example, in the Cinque Terre, I basically just like had a day where I wanted to just be on the beach and eat pesto. And that's what I did that whole day. And I didn't like have any sites that I like needed to see. Like I checked everything off my itinerary. I usually try and do that at the beginning of the trip, just so like I can spend the end of my trip not being stressed about like, did I see it all? Did I do it all? And then also like, don't feel so stressed about doing it all, because like everything that's on like a top things you must do list, those don't mean that like you have to do them. Like whenever I look at like lists for New York, I'm always like, oh, if I did that in New York, like that was my trip to New York, I would hate New York. Like that's why so many people don't like New York when they visit here.
Yeah,
they do
for
like
sure.
Times Square and the Statue of Liberty and like all these places that are just like crowded with tourists, and you're not actually experiencing the city. Take a moment, take a step back, think about what you actually are passionate about, what excites you, and plan your trip around that. So like, you know, for example, when I used to live in London, I could have spent my money and gone to a lot of museums, but at the time, all I really cared about was Doctor Who, so I spent all my money to go see David Tennant and Catherine Tate
Oh my gosh, amazing.
and to go to the Doctor Who experience. And, you know, I'm going back and I'm excited to now finally do those museums that I skipped, but like that was the trip that I wanted. Like I wanted a Doctor Who experience, and I'm happy that I did that. It wasn't the most cultured, but it was like my trip. Like you get to decide what your trip is and what your travel experience is like. You don't have to listen to like TripAdvisor or whoever's telling you that you like must do these things.
I feel like those are good ways to find inspiration for what you want to do, but like don't take it as gospel. Like pick and choose what you want to do.
I agree.
I also want to second that relaxing day, because I so wish I had that. When I got back to London, like my first 2 days weren't my favorite because I was getting really tired and exhausted, and I felt like I had to keep going. And I wish I had planned at least like one day to like relax in the beginning. So especially if you're going on a long trip, I really recommend having that relaxed day, because then later you can do stuff if you want to, but give yourself the time to rest, because I think there is this pressure to always be going and always be seeing the sights and be doing something interesting, and like it's okay to just like stay in bed until 1 and go out for lunch and sit in a park. Like it's okay to have a day like that too. One thing that I found with traveling is I started out with this mindset of like, I'm gonna have a super great itinerary, and then as I got closer, I like stopped planning from anxiety, and then I like tried to do it while I was away, but I ended up sort of just like planning it out in my head based on what was close together on my map. So do an itinerary, but also don't hold yourself to it. I think it's really important to allow yourself to be flexible. Something else that I found out while I was there is there were certain days where I was like, I'm just gonna go and explore this neighborhood, and sometimes I didn't have as much fun those days as I wanted to, because I feel like I was just walking and walking and walking, and I feel like if I had just said to myself like, I want to go to this one place, even if it was like for like a meal or a museum or a bookstore or something, like I feel like I would have felt more accomplished had I just had the one thing to do, and then like I could walk around and go into shops and feel good. But those days definitely didn't feel as productive as the other ones that were more planned for me personally.
I agree. I feel like there are different types of travelers. Like obviously there are people who like, they like that. I have friends who are like that, and we have traveled together and it has not gone well. I am not like that. Like I cannot just go to a place and just wander. I need like a plan. And I definitely, another thing I would say is like while you're planning, when you're putting all those things on your list that you want to do a quick Google for all of them, because oftentimes you might be surprised at like, one, what needs a ticket or a reservation in advance, and two, how much effort it sometimes takes to make those reservations, especially if you are going to Japan or Asia, because for Japan at least, like everything that I had to reserve was a little bit of a nightmare, especially the Studio Ghibli Museum.
Natalia went through that too, because she's in Japan.
It's horrible. It is a nightmare, but I believe in you. You can do it. But just like do a quick Google. Also like the Wizarding.
The tour. You have to book
tour.
that like, at least a month in advance.
Yeah, you have
there
to book
are some
that.
things you should definitely look up, like.
Yeah.
If it might be ticketed, you don't want to get there and be like, oh, I thought I could buy tickets there, and then not.
Usually you can't. Another question we got was from Alice, and she asked, how do you manage to eat alone or spend time alone in the evening? I find it the most stressing / lonely. Also, would you be comfortable going out to a bar by yourself to meet people?
Eating alone, bring a book. I mean, if you're a reader, obviously I'm a reader. I brought a book with me everywhere. Sure, it was annoying to bring, but I always enjoyed my meals more because I was able to just sit and read. Some days I just like watched YouTube while I was on a cafe. Like, if you are someone who doesn't like eating alone specifically, bring stuff to make you feel a little bit more occupied, so it's not like you're just staring at your plate until you finish.
And if you have a book and you're like in Paris sitting at a cafe with your book.
Yes, it's like so picturesque.
I used to be someone who like hated doing things alone. Like the whole idea, I had this realization the other day that like growing up and like, you know, when I first moved to the city, the whole idea of like eating somewhere alone, going to a movie alone, like doing things alone was like terrifying to me. I was always the person who would say like never, I would never do that. And now I realize I do that constantly.
Yeah.
And it's just like second nature. Like I don't even think about it. It doesn't even give me any stress. I feel like it's something that like just you do it enough. And especially like as you travel alone more.
You'll get used to it.
Yeah, you get used to it and you grow to kind of love it, to just like sit by yourself and like be with yourself or your book or whatever you're watching. I also, when it comes to doing things alone, I give myself like a purpose. So like for example, when Pokemon Go came out, for a while, I feel like honestly Pokemon Go is what changed me. Like from being able to do things
That's
alone.
Awesome.
Was that like I then had this like purpose. I was like, oh, I had to go catch Pokemon. So now I'm gonna go to Central Park alone, and then I'm gonna go get food at this place that I know is a Pokestop and like be there alone.
So awesome.
And I feel
love
like that was a big like part of like what changed things for me. But also like vlogging.
Oh yeah, vlogging. Always vlog your trip.
It's like, it's so helpful like when you are alone and you don't really have anyone to share it with, to be able to vlog it is a way of doing that. Like sometimes I'll get comments where people are like, oh, I wish you could just like experience it and not like worry about vlogging. And like I think what people don't realize is that like being able to vlog makes the trip, it gives me a purpose on the trip, and it helps me feel more comfortable being alone.
I feel like vlogging and taking Instagram pictures and all the stuff that people say is like so horrible and like detaches you from reality, especially in those moments. It allows me to appreciate it so much more because I really want to capture it. And I want to fully showcase like what I'm doing, where I'm at, and how I'm feeling. And I feel like I have been so much more in touch with myself on my trip because I vlogged like every second of it.
Because it also like forces you to reflect like in the moment.
You have to.
Yeah, and it like it's almost like you are sharing it with another person, because you are like in the end like you know that that's gonna go out to people, and it doesn't have to be a vlog. It might be like your Instagram story or like Twitter
or a diary,
or a diary, a journal. I love journaling while traveling. Just having like a purpose or like an activity, I feel like it's really a driving factor for me to be like, oh yeah, I really want to, that's actually a big driving factor for me on a daily basis. Like I'll be like, oh, I really want to film a video. Like I recently did a thrift with me, and I was like, I need to go sell these clothes. I'm going to turn it into a whole video because I feel like it motivates me to do things, and sometimes I need that in order to like actually accomplish things. So like if you find yourself like struggling with that, struggling with motivating yourself when you're alone, give yourself a reason, like give yourself a project or something. And I feel like that's, at least for me, it's been very helpful.
For sure. Kathy asked, how do you take cute photos of yourself? And as Monica is my constant Instagram guru and changed the game for me on this trip taking cute photos of myself, I'm gonna let her explain.
So my number one tip is to just not be afraid to be as extra as humanly possible.
Oh yeah.
Like
I spent at least 30 minutes taking photos of myself in front of the Palace of Versailles.
Yep.
No joke.
Yep.
No joke.
Like for a lot of people, a lot of people don't care. A lot of people don't care about getting like good like photos or selfies, and that is 100% fine. I would make sure that if you do care about that a lot, maybe have a discussion beforehand if you're traveling with another person, because like that is something that could cause like a lot of conflict.
Yeah.
I love getting a good photo. Like I love getting that shot. I like that's something that like drives me and that like excites me. And I feel like it's seen as like dumb or vapid, but like I think it's an art. I don't know. Like it's photography. Like I feel like people have this idea that like, oh, it's like shallow or vague, but it's like you are a photographer. Like don't think of it's like if you're writing, you're a writer. You can think of like what you're creating as photography. Like you can give yourself that permission. You don't have to think of it as like an embarrassing shallow thing, even if you're taking photos of yourself, especially if you're taking photos of yourself. Self-portraits are a thing.
Hell yeah.
But anyways, I have a few tools. I have my selfie stick that is like my favorite thing because it's a selfie stick, but it's also a mini tripod, so it has like legs on the bottom, so you can set it up and you can use it as like a tripod with your phone. I also have like a specific little mini tripod that I have my vlog camera on that's helpful.
Also the Bluetooth button on the tripod, that's like the main thing.
The selfie stick tripod that I use, I'll link it down below. It's basically, it has a Bluetooth remote, so you can use your Bluetooth to like take photos on your camera. You don't have to rely on self-timer. You can just use the Bluetooth remote, which is great. I mean, obviously be respectful wherever you are. Like don't do this if you're in like a memorial place or anything like that. Like
be respectful.
Be respectful of other people who are also tourists, people who are like you know, be smart, be respectful. But, you know, if you want a photo, just take the photo.
Don't miss out on the opportunity to get a good photo just because you might feel a little embarrassed. Like the person that's walking past you who might stare, they're going to forget you existed in 15 minutes.
Yeah,
like,
you're never going to see those people again. What just happened?
I bought the same selfie stick as Monica. It's $20. It is amazing. It changed the game for me. My best friend who's also going solo traveling just bought it. It's really worth it to have a good tool to help you take those photos if you care about that.
It's like when you're alone, again, you get to like do whatever you want and be as extra as you want. So like for example, for me, I love sunrise photos and I love waking up early. This is something that like she has experienced firsthand when we went to Wizarding World, and I made everyone wake up at like the crack of dawn because I was like, we gotta get photos.
So worth it.
But
so
we have amazing photos.
We do.
Like I would make literal strategies of like, okay, if we get to this park at this time, then we can take the Hogwarts Express over to make sure that we get the first photos in Diagon Alley.
Okay,
Anyways.
Monica's the person to travel with if you want good photos.
Here for you. But like for example, when I was in Paris, like something I really wanted to do is I just wanted to take like super early morning photos and video. I wanted to basically do my Paris lookbook, and so every morning for like a week I would wake up at 4 a.m.
Every morning you did that?
I did it over the course because I wanted different locations, and I would take my video and my photos and I would do all the things I wanted to do. And I could be that extra person that like would probably be insufferable to travel with. You don't care about that. Like I recognize that that is a lot for someone. But it's nice when you're alone. Like you don't have to worry about anyone else like judging you or being annoyed with you. Like you just do whatever you want to do, even if it's annoying. And for me, it was waking up at 4 a.m. so that I could go take photos in Paris.
Julia asked, what are your best solo travel experiences?
So one of mine was when I was in the Cinque Terre, and I, in advance, I had booked this pesto making class at a restaurant.
Oh my god, I remember you telling me about this.
It was one of my favorite experiences ever. So yeah, I basically booked this for this day, and I guess it was a slower day. The Cinque Terre is like a huge tourist location, so like I was surprised. But it was like a slower day, and I got there and I was the only person. So basically this restaurant, it's like on the edge of like a cliff basically, and it's outdoors, and they kick everybody out of the restaurant for this class. So I was surprised they didn't cancel it on me. So I got to have this like one-on-one private pesto making course with the owner of the restaurant. And he taught me how to make pesto using like all of the most amazing ingredients ever. At the end, I got like a whole like fresh meal of like cheeses and pestos and meats and breads and a whole entire bottle of wine to myself. I got to choose the best seat in the entire restaurant with like the best view. And it cost €30.
That's amazing.
It was wild.
That's
and
so great.
Yeah, definitely one of my favorite experiences.
I think one of the most exciting things about traveling to London for me, like overall, was being able to sort of like reclaim that city for myself, because for those of you who don't know, I was in a relationship and he was from England, and so I had previously spent a month in England, and so all of my memories previously were tied to that person. And so it was really cool to like either go back to some of those same places and be able to make my own memories, but also like exploring myself and being able to like really make it like my own experience in the city. So I really cherished like that opportunity to take back a place that I loved even before that relationship for myself.
I love that.
Yeah, that was definitely like the big benefit of the trip, I think.
Those are all of the questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those were all the questions that we got. I hope that this video was helpful for any of you. Obviously, like, we're only coming at this from our own experiences. Everybody's travel experiences are different and varied. But I'd love to hear from you guys if you've solo traveled. What has been your experiences? Or if you have any other questions, feel free to leave them down below and I'll try and get to them. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you, Emma, for being here.
Thank you for filming this with me, because I really now love talking about solo traveling.
All right, have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye.